Well, I hope you like my new place. Rather fashionable, isn't it? But I must get these lawns cut sometime today. Getting out of hand. Even the local deer won't do anything to keep me lawn trimmed. Anyway, enough frivolities, because as many of you will know, this is the wonderful Wollaton Hall. I've popped down to Nottingham today and surprisingly they've let me in. Whether they let me back out again or throw me out is another matter. But I've come here today for a wander around to sort of blow away the cobwebs of this nagging cold that I've had for the best part of a week. First port of call seems to be up there, because by the looks of what I can see there's an evergreen oak there, so maybe we can find our first new species of this visit. There'll be quite a few leaf miners probably today. The idea is to walk around and check the walls of the buildings for inverts, but also have a look around the gardens and see what we can find. You never know what's going to turn up. It's not very often I ever make an appearance here at Wollaton Hall, even when I lived in Nottingham. I did turn up here a couple of times working for the day when I was on the parks department here. But otherwise, apart from an invertebrate day that Dennis and myself attended on behalf of the RSPB a number of years ago, never came here. Which is silly really, because it is a wonderful place. Enables you to get close, very close, to red deer as well. But Wollaton Hall, as I said, is a wonderful building, and it stands proud high on this hill. And there's quite a view looking over that way, which I think is towards Strelly. It's a smashing place to visit. Now, the level of infestation rate of Ectodemia herringella on this particular group of evergreen oaks is very different from this year to last year. You may well be able to see these small flecks. I'll show you closer in a minute. These little brown flecks are the new mines. This is a species that mines from October right through into the new year. So it's a species that you can look for during the winter months. No need to remain idle. But just inside the outermost foliage, or the outer edge of the canopy, you can see those brown blotches on the older leaves. They're last year's mines. And here's an example. This is one of last year's leaves, and on here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mines. These have merged together. As the leaf dies, it makes these appear like a blotch, but they are small, sinuous gallery mines. Now we've got 6 mines on there. Compare that to this year's leaf. All these brown flecks, this is a typical leaf, all represents a new leaf mine. So we've got 20 or 30 individual mines starting there. This is high level infestation, and it's very similar, if not worse, than the highest level of infestation I saw a couple of years ago at university. This tree, in years to come, all the leaves are going to be like that, or worse. And this is a species that's not been in the county long, maybe only about 5 years. It's always going to be restricted, and it's going to be restricted because evergreen oaks aren't commonly planted. A lot of the county's older parks will have them, and they'll probably also have these tenanted mines that are just appearing now. While I'm here, our second species, or remnants and signs of it, this is the familiar web of Nigma walkenarii, that tiny green spider. No surprise to find this here. It's a very impressive building, and the parkland around it is perhaps reminiscent of some of the larger parks in the centre of London. Nottinghamshire's lucky to have somewhere like this, right on the doorstep of everybody that lives within the city. If I lived down here again, this may well be my local patch to come and visit. There must be a fantastic species list here. I know certainly moths have been well recorded, but other invertebrates, it must be full. Wollaton Hall, of course, is the home of the Nottingham Biological and Geological Record Centre, to whom everybody in Nottinghamshire should automatically send their records to first. In my opinion anyway. Hopefully, through the wonders of iRecord, the local record centre here should get those records. It's vitally important that they do, because if our local record centre don't have the records, how can any planning permission ever be stopped? It's a lovely place. I won't mind having my morning coffee sat on here. Cracking place. Looking on the walls of Wollaton Hall here, mainly for Liburnum species A and other harvestmen, but nothing so far. One thing that's missing this time of year that would normally be covering these walls: harlequin ladybirds. Ladybirds, like everything else, have had a bad year this year, I think anyway. And normally those stone walls outside old primary schools, especially where there's sycamores and limes planted alongside, would normally be clustered with hundreds and hundreds of harlequin ladybirds. Works for Priory, you get into October, you get a nice day such as today, and you get harlequin ladybirds coming and landing on the walls looking for somewhere suitable to overwinter. And I thought these walls here would be the same. There's not a single ladybird on them of any kind. This is one of the newer type of salvias. These fabulous tubular flowers, look. There's one thing that springs to mind as soon as I see these, and that's hummingbird hawk moths. Probably even convolvulus hawk moths as well. Ideal in full flower as well this time of year. They get quite large, so they're not for the small garden, but if you can find a place for these in your garden, the bees love them all the same. There's a few honeybees that are visiting these flowers as well. Always has the potential to attract the unusual. Just outside the camellia house here at Wollaton Hall. Some nice camellias in there, but totally ridden with black fly or green fly. And so they've had a bumper year and a hell of a time in there. What's in there now though, there's quite a few Eudonia angustias, which is one of the pyralid moths. Very common this time of year, especially in urban locations. Very distinctive, that typical sort of Eudonia scaparia shape, but Eudonia angustia holds its wings much more narrower. It's regularly requested as for an identification on some chat groups and Facebook groups. There's at least 5 in there, and 1 or 2 on the outskirts. But what else is here on this box, and no surprise, is box moth, or at least signs of box moth. This is going to become increasingly common, this kind of sight, throughout the next decade or so. And although these leaves here appear to be dead, it's not through box blight. You'll see on closer examination that these leaves and shoots were at one time webbed up together to form like a tube, wherein sat the larva of the box moth. It's in good numbers here, And this, unfortunately, is what's going to happen to most box. My recommendation, don't waste your money planting box, because it'll just end up like this in years to come. The moth's here, we can't do anything about it, unless you want to spray your gardens regularly. And who wants to do that? No one in the right mind. So use something else for your topiary other than box. Why not go back to good old privet? Box moth is a very attractive moth. I've yet to see the white form, or at least a live one, but I've reared a number of larvae. Oh, turned out to be the dark form, which in its own way is absolutely beautiful. On first appearance it just appears sort of dark brown, featureless, but catch it in the right light and it glistens and shines purples. It's a beautiful thing. In many ways it's perhaps more beautiful than the white form, the commoner white form that everyone appears to see. One day, or maybe one night, around the light at home, but box moth is found pretty much throughout Nottinghamshire now. And so the northernmost record that I know is certainly in Warsaw, but I dare say it's turned up in an odd location further north. Well, that is the camellia house. I don't know whether it was a peach house at one time. I don't think so. Peach houses are usually long, sort of up against a wall. It may well have been, but anyway, now it's well planted with different varieties of camellia. It takes me a while to clean those windows, you know. Still, rather disappointed in the gardens, unless I haven't found them all yet. I expected a bit more. I was hoping that there would be figs here, so I'm looking for figs to be able to check for another micro moth, which is possibly in the county now. But it's a nice view of the camellia house and Wollaton Hall at the back of it. Chasing around old formal gardens such as this might not be everybody's idea of insect collecting, or great habitats for insect collecting, but they can be. It's amazing what can turn up in old gardens like this, especially where plants have been imported. Horticulture over the years has added many species to the UK list, species that would never have occurred here naturally, but they're now commonplace. Such are the kind of species that you get here. That makes formal gardens like this, with a range of plants from different continents of the world, such exciting places to survey and look at. Personally, for me anyway, you never know what's going to turn up here. What could have come in with the soil wrapped around some potted plant 100 years ago. So well worth spending a bit more time looking around sites such as this. There's a wealth of species out there waiting to be found. I've not found any today, but I've not really looked that much. The purpose of this visit is just to wander around, a wheezy wander, a breath of fresh air. Now, there's been virtually nothing invertebrate wise on the walls, and I've struggled to find anything, but all of a sudden I saw two harvestmen. One was the expected Paralygolophus agrestis, the other one was this one, which I didn't expect to see sat on the wall, and this is a Pileosattalis. Now, it appears generally quite dark and dull, but this isn't the best marked of individuals. The most conspicuous feature of Sattalis is that stripe down the length of the body dorsally. It's also made out of like small V's, a series of small V's pointing from the back end towards the head. This is a species that I don't see very often. All the records I've had, as far as I can remember, have been within the vicinity of buildings. Seems to be quite a synanthropic species, certainly in Nottinghamshire anyway, often found in around churches and graveyards, but as I say, a few records of this, so this is a really good record I'm pleased with this. It's nice to come across this species and to find it on a wall. Normally it's tucked away under stones. So something nice to record here. It's getting fair and breezy now. A few of the trees are starting to look glorious now as the leaves are changing colour. Quite a few are starting to fall already. A few red deer down there. It's a rutting season, so I'm not going anywhere near them at all. It's well worth a visit if you've not been to Wollaton Park. Lovely grounds and parkland to walk around. There's the big lake. There's plenty to do here as well. A lot of little attractions to visit. Well worth popping in again.